They want you. Isn't that funny how that sounds when you say it out loud? Like desire is a clean thing, like wanting someone automatically means reaching them, touching them, owning the outcome. But there's a block, an invisible wall nobody likes to talk about, the kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that sits between intention and action and just smiles while people pretend it isn't there. You've felt it already, that strange pause in the air, the hesitation that doesn't match the hunger, the silence that doesn't fit the longing, because wanting is easy, wanting costs nothing, but crossing a block means exposure, accountability, risk, and most people don't want the consequences of what they claim to desire. They want the fantasy without the fracture, the reward without the reckoning. Desire is cheap. It shows up everywhere, talks loud, makes promises it never plans to keep. Everyone wants something. Everyone feels pulled toward something shiny, something warm, something that looks like escape. Desire doesn't require courage. It doesn't require discipline. It doesn't even require honesty. You can want something and still sit perfectly still, convincing yourself that the wanting itself means progress. People confuse heat with movement. They think because their chest feels tight or their thoughts won't shut up that they're already on the way. They aren't. Desire just sits there, tapping its fingers, whispering stories about what could be, while action waits for proof. That's the gap most people fall into and never climb out of. Look around and you'll see it everywhere. People who want success but love comfort more. People who want love but refuse vulnerability. People who want peace but keep feeding the habits that poison their sleep. Desire gives them cover. It lets them feel alive without being exposed. As long as they want, they don't have to act. As long as they dream, they don't have to decide. Desire is emotional. Action is violent. Action disrupts routines, embarrasses egos, breaks the carefully curated image people carry around like armor. Desire asks nothing. Action asks for everything. That's why people protect desire like a pet and treat action like an enemy. You'll hear it in their words. Someday, soon, when things calm down, when the timing is right, when I feel more ready. Desire loves delay because delay keeps consequences away. Action doesn't negotiate. The moment you move, you risk failing in public, being judged, being wrong, being seen. Desire lets you stay hidden while still feeling important. There's a strange comfort in wanting. It creates identity without accountability. You become the person who almost did something, who could have been something, who was meant for something bigger. Almost is a safe place. Almost never gets challenged. Almost never bleeds. Action, on the other hand, exposes motives. It answers questions desire keeps dodging. Do you really want this? Or do you just like the idea of being the kind of person who would have it? Do you want the outcome, or do you want the applause that might come with it? Desire doesn't care. Action forces the answer. That's why so many people protect their desire fiercely. They talk about it, dress it up, romanticize it, defend it when questioned. Because the moment desire turns into action, it can be measured, evaluated, tested. It can fail. Desire never fails. It just waits and blames timing. The world is full of people standing still with loud intentions. They mistake intensity for progress. They mistake emotion for commitment. They think because it hurts to want something, they're already paying the price. Pain without movement is still comfort. Real cost begins when you step forward and can't step back into the same version of yourself. Action doesn't ask how you feel. It doesn't care about your mood or your past or your excuses. It only responds to choice. And once that choice is made, desire either proves itself real or disappears completely. That's the part nobody advertises. Most desires don't survive action. They collapse the moment effort is required. They were never meant to move. only to decorate the mind, only to distract from the emptiness of standing still. So if desire keeps showing up in your life without results, it's not because you're cursed or blocked or unlucky. It's because desire has been allowed to stay comfortable. It's been allowed to exist without consequence, without challenge, without demand. Action changes the relationship instantly. It turns wanting into responsibility. It turns imagination into exposure. It forces alignment between what you say you want and what you're willing to lose to get it. And most people aren't afraid of failure. They're afraid of discovering that their desire was never strong enough to survive. The first real step blocks don't scream. They don't kick the door down or announce themselves with drama. They just sit there, quiet, irritating, perfectly placed, like a chair in the dark that keeps smashing into your shin. You call it bad timing. You call it circumstances. You call it other people. Anything except what it actually is, because a block is honest, brutally honest. It shows up right where confidence starts to shake, right where bravado thins out, right where the story you've been telling yourself runs out of believable lines. A block doesn't stop movement by force. It waits to see if you actually meant it. Everyone says they're fearless until something asks for proof. Then suddenly the excuses come out polished and professional. Responsibilities, logic, wisdom, patience, all those respectable words people hide behind when fear doesn't want to show its face. Fear hates being exposed. It prefers disguises. A block is a mirror that doesn't flatter. It reflects hesitation, doubt, insecurity, and the old wounds people swear they've healed but still protect like secrets. If there were no fear behind the desire, the block wouldn't exist. You'd push through without ceremony. But the pause happens because something inside tightens up. Fear isn't always loud panic. Sometimes it's calm. Sometimes it's reasonable. Sometimes it sounds like maturity. That's what makes it dangerous. It convinces people they're being smart when they're actually retreating. The block gives fear a stage to perform on. Watch how people behave when they hit resistance. The mask slips. Confidence turns conditional. Passion becomes cautious. Suddenly they need reassurance, signs, guarantees. They want safety before movement. Fear always asks for safety first. Blocks don't exist to punish. They exist to pressure. They squeeze the truth out of people who are used to hiding behind words. They force a question no one likes answering honestly. How bad do you want this when comfort is no longer guaranteed? Most people think fear looks like weakness. It doesn't. It looks like control. It looks like overthinking. It looks like waiting until everything is perfect. It looks like staying in familiar pain instead of risking unfamiliar growth. The block highlights that pattern immediately. You'll notice how fast desire fades when a block appears, how quickly excitement turns NTO, frustration, or bitterness. That's fear realizing it might have to move or disappear. So it starts negotiating. Maybe later, maybe not now, maybe this wasn't meant to be. Fear loves destiny talk when effort shows up. Blocks also expose fear of success, not just failure. Fear of being seen, fear of responsibility, fear of not being able to go back to the old excuses once things change. Because crossing a block means identity shifts. You can't pretend anymore. You can't play small without knowing you chose it. People romanticize struggle until struggle demands action. Then they call it unfair. But the block isn't unfair. It's precise. It shows up exactly where self-belief ends and self-protection begins. That line is different for everyone, and the block finds it effortlessly. Some people stare at the block forever, convincing themselves they're being patient when they're actually hiding. Others get angry at it, as if resistance is betrayal. Very few ask what the block is revealing about them. That question is the one fear hates the most, because once you see the fear clearly, you can't unsee it. You recognize the patterns, the delays, the rationalizations, the way you've avoided similar blocks before and called it fate instead of fear. Awareness ruins comfort. Blocks don't move on their own. They respond to decision. Either fear stays in charge or it gets dragged forward screaming. There's no third option. Waiting doesn't dissolve a block, it just builds a story around it. The truth is simple and uncomfortable. If there were no fear, the block would already be behind you, and if the block feels heavy, it's because it's holding the weight of everything you've been avoiding about yourself. Wanting feels convincing. It tricks the body before it ever convinces the soul. You feel the pull, the ache, the restless thoughts that keep circling the same idea over and over, and you assume that must mean you're ready. That's the lie people fall in love with. Wanting doesn't prepare you. It just introduces you to the idea of preparation. Readiness is quiet. It doesn't rush. It doesn't beg for signs or reassurance. It doesn't need to announce itself because it's already resolved. Wanting, on the other hand, is loud. It's emotional. It wants validation. It wants permission. It wants guarantees that nothing will hurt too much when things get real. People want outcomes long before they're built for the consequences. They want connection without exposure, success without responsibility, purpose without sacrifice. Wanting allows that fantasy to survive. Readiness kills fantasy. Readiness replaces imagination with commitment. You can want something intensely and still be completely unprepared for what comes with it. That's why so many people fall apart the moment they get what they asked for. They wanted the reward, not the wait. They wanted the feeling, not the demand. Wanting never trained them for the pressure. Readiness shows up in behavior, not emotion. It shows in consistency when nobody is watching, in restraint when shortcuts are available, in patience when impatience would feel better. Wanting feels urgent. Readiness feels steady. One shakes, the other stands. Most people don't like that distinction because it removes the comfort of desire. It means wanting something badly doesn't earn sympathy. It means tears don't equal qualification. It means longing doesn't move the door an inch unless readiness is already on the other side pushing. You'll hear it in how people talk. They say they're ready, but they're still bargaining, still waiting for the perfect mood, still hoping someone else makes the first move, still needing certainty before commitment. That's not readiness. That's fear dressed up as optimism. Readiness doesn't ask when. It decides how. It doesn't say someday. It says, this is what I do now, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it costs more than expected. Wanting collapses the moment cost appears. Readiness absorbs cost as part of the process. There's a reason opportunities don't respond to desire alone. If they did, everyone would have everything. Opportunity responds to alignment, to preparation meeting timing, to discipline meeting chance. Wanting without readiness creates frustration. Readiness without wanting creates momentum. People often confuse intensity for maturity. They think because they feel deeply, they must be equipped. But emotion doesn't build structure. Emotion doesn't develop skill. Emotion doesn't sustain effort. Emotion burns hot and fades fast. Readiness is built slowly, often boringly, often invisibly. That's why readiness scares people. It removes the romance. It demands responsibility before reward. It demands growth before access. It demands honesty before movement. Wanting lets you dream while staying the same. Readiness forces you to change before you're comfortable. You can tell when someone isn't ready by how they react to delay. Wanting becomes impatient, bitter, entitled. Readiness stays focused. It adjusts. It keeps preparing. It understands that delay is part of development, not rejection. Wanting says, I deserve this. Readiness asks, am I built for this? Wanting looks outward for signs. Readiness looks inward for gaps. Wanting blames obstacles. Readiness studies them. The hardest part is accepting that wanting something badly doesn't make you wrong. It just doesn't make you ready. That gap hurts the ego. It forces humility. It forces work without applause. It forces progress without guarantees. And that's where most people stop. Not because they didn't want it enough, but because they weren't willing to become the kind of pers. On who could hold it without breaking delay has a way of humiliating people. It makes confident plans feel childish and bold promises sound naive. When things don't move on your schedule, the ego starts itching, looking for someone to blame, something to label as unfair, cursed, blocked. But delay isn't passive, it's active. It's watching. Most people assume delay means disinterest or rejection. They think if something doesn't happen quickly, it must not be meant to happen at all. That belief protects pride. It lets them walk away without admitting they were afraid of what would be required if things actually moved forward. Delay gives them an elegant exit. But delay is revealing, not dismissive. It stretches time just enough to expose motivation. When excitement fades and effort remains, you find out who was serious and who was just emotional. Anyone can want something when it feels urgent and romantic. Delay removes the romance and leaves the work. Watch how people behave when progress slows down. Some lose focus instantly. Their energy evaporates. Their passion becomes conditional. They stop showing up because the reward isn't immediate anymore. Others get sharper, more disciplined, more intentional. Delay separates impulse from commitment. True intention doesn't panic when nothing happens right away. It doesn't spiral into stories or assumptions. It adjusts. It studies. It keeps preparing. False intention demands speed because speed hides weakness. The longer things take, the more preparation is required, and preparation exposes gaps people hope no one would notice. Delay also kills fantasies. In the beginning, everything feels possible. The mind fills in the blanks with perfect outcomes and effortless success. Delay interrupts that movie. It forces reality into the frame. Real timelines, real obstacles, real effort. That's where many people quietly disappear. PLE say they're patient, but what they really mean is they're comfortable as long as nothing challenges their self-image. Delay challenges it immediately. It asks if you still believe in what you said you wanted when no one is clapping and nothing is moving. There's also fear hiding inside delay. Not fear of losing, but fear of being revealed. Because when things finally happen, excuses stop working. You can't say you would have done better if you'd had a chance. You either show up prepared or exposed. Delay gives time to prepare, but it also gives time to quit. Some people pretend delay is a sign to stop. Others recognize it as a test of alignment. Not everything delayed is denied. Some things are delayed because the cost is high and the stakes are real. Rushing into something you're not built for destroys more than waiting ever could. Delay forces you to sit with yourself. No distractions, no quick wins. Just intention facing time. That's uncomfortable for people who rely on momentum to feel alive. Without movement, they have to confront their discipline, their habits, their honesty. You start to notice patterns. How often you've wanted things fast. How often you've walked away when patience was required. How often you've confused delay with destiny because it was easier than admitting you didn't want to grow. Delay isn't silent. It's loud if you listen. It speaks through frustration, boredom, doubt. It presses on the weak spots. It highlights where your foundation is thin. It's not there to break you. It's there to expose what needs strengthening. Those who survive delay don't romanticize it. They don't enjoy it. They use it. They build quietly. They refine their motives. They remove entitlement. They stop demanding outcomes and start earning readiness. The irony is that delay often disappears the moment alignment is complete. Not when you want it the most, but when you stop needing it to prove your worth. When your identity is no longer tied to the outcome, movement becomes possible. Most people never realize delay wasn't the enemy. It was the filter. It was removing everything that couldn't survive time, pressure, and truth, leaving only what was real enough to move forward without collapsing. Truth doesn't rush. It waits until resistance gets tired. It doesn't kick the door open or beg for attention. It just stands there, patient, watching people exhaust themselves with explanations that don't hold up under pressure. Most people say they want truth, but what they really want is reassurance. Truth doesn't reassure. It removes hiding places. When resistance shows up, it's rarely obvious. It doesn't announce itself as fear or dishonesty. It disguises itself as logic, timing, responsibility, even loyalty. It convinces you that holding back is wisdom, that silence is maturity, that delay is kindness. Resistance is clever like that. It doesn't stop you by force. It slows you down until you forget why you started. You can feel it in the body before the mind admits it. That tightening when things get real. That pause before action. That sudden need to rethink everything you were confident about yesterday. Resistance always arrives when truth is close enough to matter. If truth were distant, there'd be no need to resist it. People resist truth because truth demands change. Not cosmetic change, not words, structural change, identity level change. Once truth is acknowledged, you can't unknow it. You can't pretend anymore. You can't go back to comfortable lies without feeling the weight of awareness pressing down on you. That's why resistance fights so hard. It knows once truth gets through, the old patterns collapse. Old excuses lose their power. Old stories stop working. Resistance wants to protect the familiar, even if the familiar is miserable. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar freedom. Truth doesn't argue with resistance. It doesn't debate or negotiate. It just stays. Every time you avoid it, it stays. Every time you distract yourself, it stays. Every time you tell yourself you'll deal with it later, it stays. That's what makes it unbearable over time. Resistance gets tired. Truth doesn't. You'll notice resistance is loud in your head but quiet in your actions. It keeps you thinking instead of moving, planning instead of doing, analyzing instead of committing. It fills your mind with noise so you don't hear the simple instruction underneath it all. Truth, when it finally lands, feels obvious, almost embarrassing. You wonder how you avoided it for so long, how you managed to complicate something so clear. That's resistance working overtime, making simple things feel impossible. People often think resistance means they're not ready. Sometimes it means they're exactly ready and terrified of what comes next. Because once truth is accepted, responsibility follows. You can't blame circumstances anymore. You can't wait for permission. You can't hide behind confusion. Resistance thrives in secrecy. It weakens when exposed. That's why truth often arrives in quiet moments, when there's no audience, no performance, no one to impress. Just you and the thing you've been avoiding. No distractions, no escape routes. Some people fight truth until exhaustion. Others surrender earlier. Not because they're weaker, but because they're tired of pretending, tired of carrying the tension, tired of explaining away the same inner conflict year after year. Truth doesn't destroy you. Resistance does. Resistance keeps you split, divided, constantly negotiating with yourself. Truth unifies. It hurts at first, but it simplifies everything. It cuts through the noise and leaves you with one clear direction instead of 1,000 excuses. When resistance finally cracks, it doesn't look dramatic. It looks like acceptance. a quiet shift, a moment where the body relaxes because it no longer has to defend a lie. The relief is subtle but unmistakable. Truth doesn't need to be chased. It waits until you're done running, and when it steps forward, it doesn't shout. It just stands there, undeniable, asking what you're going to do now that you can see it clearly. You ever notice how people love control? Oh, they need it. They cling to it, grip it so tight their knuckles turn white. Because if they're in control, if they're calling the shots, if they're the ones making the moves, then everything's fine. Everything's safe. Everything's certain. But control, that's the biggest joke of all. Because no matter how much they plan, no matter how hard they fight, no matter how tight they hold on, life has a way of ripping it. And when that happens, that's when the panic sets in. That's when they start scrambling, clawing, trying to put the pieces back together, because they can't stand the idea that maybe, just maybe, they were never in control to begin with. It's their favorite illusion, their sweetest little lie. They wake up every morning, make their plans, set their schedules, tell themselves that today, everything is going to go exactly the way they want. Like the world is some obedient little dog just waiting to follow their every command. But then life laughs. And when life laughs, it laughs hard. One bad phone call, one accident, one betrayal, one little twist they never saw coming, and suddenly all that control they swore they had, gone, shattered, slipping through their fingers like sand. And what do? They scramble. They panic. They fight like hell to put things back in order, like a child trying to tape together a broken toy, thinking if they just press hard enough, it'll be good as new. But it won't, because it never really was. They were never in control to begin with. They just thought they were. They just liked the feeling, the comfort, the security of believing they had a grip on things. But control is a fantasy, a cheap trick, a game they've been playing with themselves since the moment they learned how scary it is to be powerless. And that's what they're really afraid of, isn't it? Powerlessness. The idea that no matter how much they plan, no matter how hard they try, they don't actually get to decide how the story goes. That's the part they can't handle. The part that keeps them up at night. Because if they're not in control, then who is? If they're not the ones pulling the strings, then what does that make them? Just passengers? Just pieces on a board, moving but never choosing? Oh, they hate that. They hate the idea that someone bigger than them might actually be the one calling the shots. So they fight it. They fight it with everything they have. They grip the wheel so tight their hands start shaking. They refuse to let go, refuse to accept that maybe, just maybe, they're making it all harder than it has to be. And the funniest part is how much stress, how much anger, how much suffering they bring on themselves just because they refuse to surrender, just because they keep trying to force things into place. Like they can muscle their way into the outcome they want. They lose sleep, they ruin relationships, they destroy their own peace, all because they can't stand the idea of not being in charge. It's like watching a man drown while clutching a bag of bricks. All he has to do is let go, but he won't. He'd rather sink than accept that he was never meant to carry that weight in the first place. And then, when it all goes wrong, when things slip out of their grasp anyway, what do? Oh, they get angry, furious. Why did this happen to me, they scream. Why is everything falling apart? As if the world owes them an explanation, as if life is supposed to play by their rules. But life doesn't follow their script. It never did, and the more they try to bend it to their will, the more it fights back, the more it reminds them violently, painfully, mercilessly that control was never theirs to begin with. Some people get it eventually. They reach a point where they're too tired, too beaten down, too done to keep pretending they're in charge. And in that moment, when they finally stop struggling, stop fighting, stop trying to force something that was never theirs to control, that's when things start to change. Not because they figured it out, not because they finally cracked some secret code, but because they finally did the one thing they never wanted to do. They let go. They stopped clenching their fists and opened their hands, and for the first time, instead of trying to control everything, they let something bigger than them take over. But most people never get there. Most people go their whole lives gripping that illusion like it's the only thing keeping them alive. They refuse to see the truth, refuse to admit that maybe, just maybe, they were never meant to hold the weight of the world on their shoulders. So they keep fighting, keep struggling, keep breaking themselves over and over again just to keep up the act. And in the end, the only thing they ever really controlled was how much they suffered. People love to talk about justice, about fairness, about making things right. Oh, they live for it. Someone crosses them, someone disrespects them, someone takes what isn't theirs, and suddenly they're on a mission to settle the score, to balance the scales, to make sure the world knows they're not the kind of person who just lets things slide. Because if they let it slide, if they walk away, if they don't do something, weak, foolish, a joke, no, they can't have that. They need to hit back, they need to get even, otherwise it eats them alive. So they plan, they plot, they stew in it. They replay every word, every moment, every little detail over and over again in their heads, imagining all the ways they could have handled it differently, how they should have said this instead of that, how next time they'll be ready. And the funny thing, the person they're so obsessed with, the one they can't stop thinking about, the one they're burning to get back at, that person, they've already moved on. They're out there, living their life, laughing, sleeping just fine, completely unaware that somewhere, someone is slowly poisoning themselves with anger. Because that's what revenge is. That's what people don't get. It's a slow poison. It sits in their gut, in their veins, twisting them up, making them sick, making them bitter. They think if they just get even, if they just make them pay, then they'll feel better. Then the fire will go out. But it doesn't. It never does. Because revenge isn't about justice. It's about control. It's about making sure they don't feel powerless. About proving to themselves that no one gets the last laugh at their expense. But here's the joke. The moment they let revenge consume them, the moment they let anger guide their every move, they've already lost. They've handed the power right back to the person who wronged them. Because now they're controlled by it. Their thoughts, their emotions, their actions, all dictated by something that happened in the past. They're dragging the weight of an old wound into every new moment, keeping it alive long after it should have been buried. And the worst part? It never ends. Because once they go down that road, once they make revenge a habit, it doesn't stop at just one person. No, no, no. The world is full of people who don't play fair, who don't follow the rules, who take and take without ever looking back. If they spend their life chasing after every single one, trying to make them all pay, they'll never stop fighting. They'll never stop suffering. And deep down, they know it. They know that revenge never truly satisfies. That's why even when they get what they wanted, even when they watch their enemies suffer, it still doesn't feel like enough, because the damage has already been done. Because whatever they lost, whatever was taken, whatever wound was carved into them, it doesn't magically heal just because the other person feels pain too. It doesn't undo the past. It just drags them down with it. But they don't want to hear that. No, no, no. They don't want to be told to let go, to move on, to forgive. Oh, that's the one thing they won't do. Because in their mind, forgiveness means weakness. It means saying what happened was okay. It means letting the other person off the hook. And that's unacceptable. Because they want justice. They want balance. They want to win. But what they don't see, what they refuse to see, is that the real strength isn't in hitting back. It's in walking away. It's in realizing that not every battle is theirs to fight, that some things, some people, aren't worth their energy. It's in knowing that peace is worth more than proving a point. But no, 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 they don't want peace. Not really. They want the war, because at least the war makes them feel something. At least the war gives them purpose. At least the war keeps them from having to sit in the silence and face the truth. That they were hurt. That it wasn't fair. That some things will never be made right in the way they want. So they keep fighting, keep feeding the fire, keep letting anger chew them up from the inside out, convinced that one day, oh one day, they'll finally feel satisfied. That one day, they'll finally be free. But revenge doesn't free them. It just ties them tighter to the thing they hate. It keeps them in chains, dragging the past behind them like a corpse that refuses to rot. And by the time they realize it, by the time they see what it's done to them, they've already wasted so much time, so much energy, so much life chasing after something that never had the power to heal them in the first place. You ever watch someone carry something so heavy, so unbearable, that it bends them, breaks them, turns them into something smaller, something weaker? They walk around with it like a weight strapped to their back. But the funny part, no one put it there, no one forced them to carry it, no one said, hey, this is yours forever. No. They chose it. They picked it up, they clung to it because somewhere along the way, they convinced themselves that if they don't hold on to it, if they don't keep dragging it around, then it means it never mattered. That if they set it down, if they let it go, then they're saying all that pain, all that suffering, all that anger was for nothing. And that's the one thing they can't allow. Because the exhaustion, the exhaustion is part of the identity now. It's woven into them, deep into their bones. They don't know who they are without it. They wouldn't know how to walk if they weren't limping. And isn't that just the most tragic little joke? They could be free right now, in this very moment, but they don't want to be. Because they don't know what they do without the weight. It's theirs, after all. And letting go, that's too simple, that's too easy, and nothing in life is that easy, right? So they keep holding on, keep dragging themselves through the mud, through the fire, through the same tired story over and over again. And the worst part, they've convinced themselves that this is normal, that this is just life. That waking up every day with that knot in their chest, that weight in their gut, that exhaustion that never quite goes away, that's just how it is. That's just how it's supposed to be. Because if they don't carry it, who will? If they don't keep suffering, then does it mean it never happened? Does it mean it didn't matter? Oh, but here's the punchline. The weight they're carrying, the one that's breaking them, no one else can even see it. No one else cares. Not in the way they think, at least. They imagine people watching, whispering, judging. They think the world is paying attention, waiting to see if they'll stumble, if they'll collapse under the pressure. But the truth is that everyone's too busy carrying their own weight to notice. No one's keeping track. No one's tallying up the suffering, handing out awards for most miserable. And yet, here they are, holding on for dear life to something that's only hurting them. And maybe, just maybe, a small part of them knows that. Maybe late at night, in the silence, when there's no one left to blame, no distractions, no noise, maybe then, for just a second, they wonder what it would feel like to just drop it, to let it slip from their fingers, to stop gripping it so tight. But then, then the fear kicks in, because who are they without their suffering, without their anger, without their story? If they stop carrying it, then what's left? Just them? Just the unknown? And the unknown? The unknown is terrifying. So they hold on tighter, they double down, they tell themselves that this is strength, that this is endurance, that this is what it means to be alive. And if anyone tells them otherwise, if anyone dares suggest that maybe, just maybe, they don't have to suffer, that maybe the weight was never theirs to carry in the first place, they laugh, they shake their heads, they say, you don't understand. But the truth is they don't understand. They don't understand that real strength isn't in how much pain they can endure. Real strength isn't in how much they can carry before they break. Real strength is in knowing when to put it down, when to step back, when to stop letting something that happened then control now. But they won't. They'll keep carrying it, keep feeding it, keep letting it carve into them like a dull, rusted knife. Because that's what they know. That's what feels safe. And people will do almost anything to stay inside the prison they built for themselves, even if all they have to do is walk out. People don't trust what they can't see. They like things they can touch, control, bend to their will. If they can't see it, can't predict it, can't own it, oh, they start squirming. Makes them nervous, makes them feel small. And people hate feeling small. So what do? They take matters into their own hands. They push, they pull, they twist, they scheme. They don't just want to win, they need to win. Because if they don't, if they back off, if they surrender even for a second, then that means they're not in control. And that scares them more than anything. Oh, but here's the trick. The control they think they have, the power they think they're holding, it's a joke, a little magic trick, an illusion. They tell themselves they're calling the shots, that they're making things happen, but deep down they know. They know there are things bigger than them. They know there are forces at play they'll never understand. But admitting that, accepting that, oh, that's the part they can't do. Because that means letting go. That means trusting. That means stepping into the unknown and really believing that something greater is handling it. And people don't like that. No, no, no. They want to see the plan. They want a contract, a guarantee, a step-by-step instruction manual that promises everything will work out exactly the way they want. But that's not how it works. It never was. So instead, they panic. They scramble. They throw punches in every direction, trying to force something that was never meant to be theirs, to control in the first place. And what happens? Oh, you know what happens. It backfires. It crumbles. They end up worse off than before, exhausted, angry, wondering why nothing ever seems to go their way. And the best part, the absolute best part, if they had just stepped back, just waited, just trusted for even a moment, things might have worked out better than they ever imagined. But no, that's not how they operate. They want proof first. They want results before they let go. They want a safety net, a cushion, a little whisper in their ear saying, "Don't worry, you're going to be fine." But trust doesn't work like that. No, no. Trust means jumping without seeing the ground. It means stepping into the dark and knowing, that something's got you. And people? They can't handle that. Oh, they'll say they trust. They'll talk about faith, about destiny, about believing in something greater. But the second things get hard, the second things don't go exactly as they planned, they grab the wheel with both hands and refuse to let go. Because trusting is scary. Because trusting means admitting they're not in charge. And that's the part they just can't swallow. So they fight battles that were never theirs to fight. They push when they should wait. They cling when they should release. And all the while they wonder why they're so tired, why they're so drained, why every step forward feels like dragging a corpse behind them. And deep down, they know the answer. They know they were never meant to carry all of this alone. They know they don't have to keep shoving and forcing and fighting for every little thing. But admitting that, oh, that would mean giving up control, and they hate that. But the funniest part, the real joke, the moment they finally let go, the moment they finally say, fine, fine, take it, I'm done fighting, that's when things start falling into place. Not because they made it happen, not because they finally cracked some secret code, but because they finally got out of the way. Because some things aren't theirs to handle. Some battles aren't theirs to fight. And no matter how hard they try, no matter how much they push, no matter how many sleepless nights they spend trying to fix it, they're just getting in their own way. But most people, most people will never get there. They'll keep fighting, keep struggling, keep exhausting themselves, convinced that if they just try harder, if they just force it a little more, things will finally click into place. And maybe one day, when they're tired enough, when they've worn themselves down to nothing, when they've broken everything they were trying so hard to hold together, maybe then they'll realize they never had control in the first place. But by then, by then, they'll have wasted so much time trying to win a battle that was never even theirs. They wake up, make their little plans, set their little goals, walk around acting like they've got it all figured out. But the second something doesn't go their way, then the real fun begins. The second life throws a little chaos their way, just a little, they start losing their minds, running around, panicking, screaming, why me? Why now? Like they expected the world to follow their rules. Like they actually thought they were owed smooth sailing. And that's the funniest joke of all. 'Cause deep down, they know. They know they don't have the power they pretend to have. They know they can't control everything. But that thought scares them. So they fight it. They resist. They scramble for some kind of grip, some kind of handle, anything that'll make them feel like they're still in charge. They try to solve things their way, force things to work, even when every sign, every gut feeling, every last shred of their sanity is screaming at them to just stop. But stopping, no. Stopping would mean surrender. And they don't like that word. They hate that word. Makes them feel weak, makes them feel small. They were told that if they want something, they gotta fight for it. Push harder, work longer, be stronger. That if something isn't happening, it's because they didn't do enough. That's what they believe. That's what they tell themselves. That if they just keep swinging, keep forcing, keep grinding, eventually they'll win. But what if they're fighting a battle that was never theirs to win? They don't think about that, do they? They never stop to ask if maybe, just maybe, they weren't supposed to be in the ring in the first place. Maybe some things aren't meant to be handled by their weak little hands. Maybe they're supposed to step back, let go, and trust that something bigger is handling it. But no, that's too easy, that's too simple. And people don't trust simple, they don't trust easy. If it doesn't come with blood, sweat, and tears, they think it must be wrong, so they hold on tighter. Keep forcing, keep fixing, keep trying to shove the pieces together even when it's clear, so clear, that the pieces don't fit. And the longer they do it, the more exhausted they become. They get angry, bitter, start blaming everyone, everything, even the universe itself, because they can't admit the truth that they were never in control, that they were never supposed to handle it all on their own, that maybe, just maybe, they need to step aside and let something greater take over. But they don't trust that. They want proof. They want a guarantee. They want a preview of how things will turn out before they let go. But that's not how trust works. No, no, no. Trust means stepping back before you see the outcome. It means putting down the sword before the battle is won. It means believing that even if they don't understand how, even if they don't see the full picture, things are working in their favor. And that's where they crack, because they want to see it first. They want evidence. But trust isn't about seeing, it's about knowing. And most people will never get there. They'll spend their lives clutching problems they were never meant to solve, carrying burdens that were never theirs, exhausting themselves trying to fight battles that already have a victor. And the real kicker, the moment they finally give in, the moment they drop their fists and say, "All right, I'm done trying to do this my way," that's when things start falling into place. Not because they figured it out, not because they made it happen, but because they stopped getting in the way, because they finally understood that some battles aren't won by force. Some battles are won by trusting the one who was meant to fight them in the first place. People walk around with this idea in their heads that everything has to make sense, that life is supposed to follow a nice, neat little pattern all tied up with a bow, that if they do good things will happen, that if they play by the rules, life will play fair, and when it doesn't, when life spits in their face, when it knocks them down, when it laughs at their plans, that's when the real meltdown begins. Because suddenly the world isn't what they thought it was. Suddenly things aren't fair. And people hate that. So they start questioning everything, asking why, trying to connect dots that were never meant to be connected. They think, if I can just figure out the reason, if I can just understand why this is happening, then maybe, just maybe, I can fix it. But that's where they mess up. That's the trap. See, they think the reason is the key to getting control back. They think if they can just find the answer, then everything will go back to how it was. But the joke, the real joke, there is no getting back to how it was. There never was. Because the second things don't go their way, they panic, they scramble. They start looking for shortcuts, for escape routes, for anything that'll make them feel safe again. And when that doesn't work, then they start blaming themselves, others, the universe, even God if they're desperate enough. Because it has to be someone's fault, right? It can't just be the way things are. Oh, no, 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 that would be too easy, too simple. And people don't trust simple. So instead, they fight it. They wrestle with it. They demand explanations, demand justice, demand the world to make sense again. But life doesn't care about their demands. It doesn't owe them an explanation, a reason, a neat little why. It just is. And the ones who get that, the ones who accept that, oh, they're the ones who actually find peace. Because they stop trying to force things to fit their little human understanding. They stop needing everything to make sense. They let go of the questions that don't have answers. But most people can't do that. They need a reason. They need to feel like there's some kind of fairness to it all, some kind of hidden meaning just waiting to be uncovered. Because the idea that things just happen, that bad things happen to good people, that suffering comes without a warning, without a reason, without a grand purpose, oh, that is too much for them. They can't handle that. So they lie to themselves. They tell themselves stories. They build explanations where there aren't any. And the funniest part, the absolute best part, the moment they finally stop asking, stop searching, stop trying to force meaning where there is none, that's when the clarity comes. That's when things actually start to make sense. Not in the way they wanted, not in the way they expected, but in a way that's so much bigger than them. But most people never get there. They waste their time, their energy, their sanity trying to figure out something that was never meant to be figured out in the first place. And what's left? A bunch of tired, frustrated people walking around with their heads full of questions that will never be answered because they were never meant to be. And all the while, the answer was simple. So simple it was right in front of them the whole time. But people don't like simple. They want complicated. They want dramatic. They want to keep searching for answers when the truth has been staring them in the face all along.